Welcome back to another video. Well, specifically another educational video on the game. I'm going to be going through basically every champion in the game and going to give you little tips and tricks on all of them so that even if you're new to the game or you're still trying to learn, you'll have a better idea of what every character does and you'll be able to perform better on them. Okay, so first is Billy. On paper is very simple. His Q does a little slap. His E drops this AoE damage after a short delay. And his W is a leap that does damage. The important part about Billy is his passive. You see, after using 2 powers, his third power has a bonus effect. This bonus effect depends on which ability. So, for example, your Q. As you see right there, it just knocks them back. That's what his Q does. However, if you see I have 1 stack now after using an ability, because it says after using 2 powers, so it keeps track of the number of powers you used. So I'll use another power, and now you'll see I'm glowing, and you'll see I have 2 stacks, so that means my next ability is empowered. So you'll see my Q just knocked them back, but this time it stuns them and it knocks them back. That's his empowered Q. Now let's talk about his empowered W. His empowered W is relatively the same, except when he uses it, it gives him a movement speed and an attack speed boost for a little while. As you can see, I am faster, and I can attack much faster as well. You see my attack speed went back up to 1700. Alright, now let's talk about his empowered ultimate. You saw his ultimate did that little AoE when it comes down. Now, when he uses his empowered E, it persists afterwards. As you can see, it continues to damage anyone in that area. Now, the damage does scale down, so you'll do a lot of damage initially, but the longer they stay in, the less damage they take per second. But you can still kill people pretty easily. Okay, now let's talk about Billy combos that you can do. So first of all, what you want to always make sure you're doing, unless certain situations arise, which you'll figure them out when you learn how to play Billy more, you always want to be at 1 stack. So you'll see there's nothing on my HUD. I'll use an ability that I have 1 stack. So now you're ready to go into a fight. You have 1 stack, which means you're ready to combo someone. And your combo consists of W, Q, and then E. And I'll show you right here. So you double Q, Q, and then E. Just like that. Except you do it much faster, or else they will be able to break free of the stun and they could dash out of the way. Now I'm going to show you what a fast combo looks like. I can show you another combo that is lesser used, but you can still do it. But you'll see I'll drop it, and then I'll cue them back into it so they take more damage. And that's his second combo that you'll be using. That's pretty much all there is to Billy. And next is Beimo. Beimo doesn't really have any combos, I guess, per se. But I can show off his abilities here. So his passive, similar to Billy's, but after using 3 powers, Beimo's next power slows. Same thing as before. After you use a power, you'll get the little thing on your HUD here showing you that how many powers you've used, which is 1. You'll see I used another one, it goes up. So all you have to do is keep that at 3, and then the next power you use on an enemy will slow them, which I guess a good strategy you can do is Beimo in the beginning. Since you walk all the way to the mid altar and it takes a while, you can just spam all your abilities, not your ultimate though. So you just use your Q, use your W, and then you'll get stacks for the fight so that when you do use your whole combo on them, you'll slow them in the middle of the fight. That's one thing for Beimo. Alright, so now his other abilities. His Q does a little cone area here, as you can see. And you do it and you see it puts a debuff on them. That means they're blinded. That means that their basic attacks, so if you were to try to attack me with a sword, it's basic attack damage, as you see in the guide, you know about basic attack damage. It'll make a noise that says for the player who's blinded that their attacks aren't doing anything, and your whole team can see the blind so they know when they're blind. Now your job as a Beimo is usually to blind the basic attackers, the dedicated basic attackers that'll just hurt your team or you with their basic attacks. You can kind of interrupt them. You're very anti-melee. You can kind of harass a lot of melee characters, and he's just really good in that regard. Alright, now the way his W works is you get stuck in place for a little while, and you do AoE damage around you every second for a couple seconds, and then after the duration ends, it'll explode, deal more damage based on how long you were channeling it, and stun enemies. You can cancel it early, which is usually what people do to get the stun off, because stun is very important, especially for your B. You can stun them and B them, which I'll show you here. I'll show you a full one so you can see how much damage it does. And you see they get stunned at the end, signified by the little stars spinning around their head. Now I'll show you his canceled early W. As you can see, you can get it off very fast to stun them, and that's usually where you'd follow up with your B. Now let's talk about his B. His B is a slow-moving B that damages enemies that it touches. It does 15% less damage for every enemy it hits in the same use. So as you'll see, I have a little indicator here. I'll throw it. The B hit him, so he took damage, and he died. Alright, now let's talk about the timing on his W and his Q. So his W stuns people, and his Q blinds people. Usually, you'll walk up, stun, and then blind. But you see that stun timer didn't last very long. And you could Q right after, but you're wasting actually the amount of time that they are CC'd or crowd controlled, because it stuns for a little bit and then you blind them. So you want to blind after the stun runs out to get the most use out of your blind, because if you blind them while they're stunned, they can't attack anyways because they're stunned. So I'll give you a little example. I'll blind them I'll blind them after I stun them. You see the stun ran out and I blinded, so now you're getting the full effect out of it. Now there are a lot of other characters that can benefit from this that you'll probably see in the guide. So that's pretty much Beimo. I'll do the combo one more time so you can see. You walk up, W, stun, E, Q, and then that's how you do the most damage. Again, as before, if you want to get the most CC out of it, you don't Q right away, but the most damage is W, E, Q. Alright, next we have Cinnamon Bun, or CB, as he's referred to. I'll go over his abilities here really quick. So his passive, whenever he uses a power, it heals him. His powers are his Q, W, and his E. So every time he presses that button, it heals him for 5% of his max HP. Alright, now let's go over his Q. You do a little poke. And you'll see here it says resets auto attack timer. Now this will show up a lot in some characters. So basically what that means is you'll see my number here on the arrows. That's your attack speed. You'll see it says 1570. That's 1570 milliseconds delay in between basic attacks. So you'll see my character stops moving there for a second and doing anything because there's a delay in between every basic attack. Now, what this means, resets auto attack timer, is when you Q, that 1570 becomes 0 essentially for that one attack. So I'll demonstrate. I will attack with my basic attack, so I'll left click, I will Q, and then that'll reset, which will allow me to left click again. You'll see it'll be very quick. You see, that was very fast, and I did 2 autos and 1 Q in that short amount of time. Now let's go over his W. His W is a dash that leaves behind frosting that slows and damages enemies, and I'll show you here. You see, it creates this little slowing area that if enemies touch it, they get slowed and they take a little bit of damage. Now let's go over his E, or his ultimate. When you press E, it puts down a little ring of frosting, and then if you press E somewhere else, it puts down another little ring of frosting. You can have 2 out at a time. But if you use a little ring on top of a little ring, it becomes a big ring, and I'll show you here in a second. Oh, another thing about his ult, which doesn't really come up much, but if you're standing in his ultimate, if CB is standing in his own ultimate, he gets increased attack speed and attack damage, which is helpful a little bit, but it doesn't really do much in the grand scheme because you're a burst mage. So, alright, now let's talk about his combo. He's a very simple character, and this is pretty much all he does for the majority of the time. If he doesn't have his ultimate, you probably shouldn't be fighting very often. But since I do have my ultimate up, I'll show you the combo and I'll explain it before I do it. So first you start with your W, which your W leaves that trail of sticky frosting, as you saw before. So it slows them. Now, after you use your W, you use your E. You press it twice to leave your big ring. Then you want to Q auto to get that auto reset time. That's where you're gonna get the most damage. I'll demonstrate it here. And that's his combo, and that's pretty much all there is to him. Another small thing about CB, again going back to his passive, heals for 5% of your max HP every time you use a power. You want to be using your powers constantly because they heal you whenever you use them. So let's say you were being chased and someone is attacking you still, and they throw one auto attack and it starts coming towards you and they think you're dead, so they start walking away. Well, you can use your Q or something, or sometimes even your ult if you're really that desperate, to heal yourself and put you outside of that kill range. And your Q is really good at that because you can see I'm only level 4 and I already have a very low cooldown on my Q, so I can just keep using that to heal. Very useful, especially because you can kind of bait people into thinking you're dead, and then you'll just heal and then you won't die. Alright, let's move on to Finn. So Finn is also very simple. He's a basic attack-based character, so literally your main source of damage is to just have your character kill them. Like that. So your passive, basically every time you hit the same target, you'll get 20% more damage on them, up to 60%. So you'll see visually, 1 ring shows up, 2 rings shows up, 3 rings shows up, and on the 4th one it disappears, and then you start stacking them again. Now your Q, it says it boosts your armor and attack speed, and if he's max fury, his armor explodes, dealing damage. So what that means is if I go like this, 1, 2, 3, and then I Q up to 4 stacks, it'll explode and do a little bit of damage. This also explodes when you die. Now on the same note of his Q also resets his auto attack timer. I don't know why it doesn't say that, but it does. So same thing with CB. As soon as you see your animation play, like I'll show you very quickly, you press Q and your character gets a free auto attack essentially. So you get more damage much quicker. Alright, now let's do his W. His W is a dash. It's pretty simple. You dash. It applies a stack of fury, so it applies your passive. And every time you get a KO or an assist, you get a reset. So I'll show you here when I will dash and then I'll kill him really quick. Well, I can't show you the dash reset, unfortunately, because this Finn bot doesn't actually count as a champion. But whenever you participate in a kill, you will get a reset. So remember to always get ready to use your dash again. If you get a kill or assist, you can either get in or go in deeper so you can get more kills. Now let's talk about his E. His E drops a square of swords that have little lines, squiggly lines going through them. And if enemies touch those squiggly lines, they get rooted. So I'll show you here. I'll drop it. So you can see, it dropped the lines, and he got rooted. Now this also applies a stack of fury. So you can use this in a few different ways. You can use it to finish off your fury combo. You can use it to trap enemies. You can use it to kind of zone enemies out of areas. So if your team's taking Kioth and you see the whole enemy team approaching down there, you can drop your E here, so they either have to go through it or wait it out, and that might allow you to secure objectives or towers. It's another good thing for towers. You can zone them off towers, so you can take them easier. And his ult has a really low cooldown, as you can see, 35 seconds. And it's just a really useful ult. It's a lot of area covered with it. So now let's talk about his pretty basic combos. So pretty much everything revolves around your Q reset. Since the more times you get stacks, the more damage you deal. So you'll walk up, reset, and then dash away like that. And basically, to explain it, to slow it down, what happened is I clicked him. As soon as I saw the animation start, I Q'd. And then I W'd out of there to get another stack and damage. Like that. That's your basic combo. You don't get 4 stacks, but it's the main point, unless you can win a 1v1 easily, is to not stay there very long. It's to do as much damage as possible, and then you can easily come right back and clean it up if you need to. Okay, let's talk about Fiona. So Fiona, again, similar to Finn, is just a basic attack based character, so you just that's basically most of your gameplay is. That's where all your damage comes from. You just click and then your character kills them. Now she does have abilities. Alright, let's talk about her abilities. So her passive, she gets more AD and power damage the lower her health is. So at 1 HP, she will be at plus 80% AD and power damage. Now let's talk about her Q. Her Q lets her dash. Just like that. She can do this 2 more times. And on the final dash, it'll slow in that area you saw. Now this dash does deal damage, but it does very, very little amount of damage. And you'll just be using this to chase enemies or get away. And that final dash is very important to land on enemies because it'll slow them, make it easier for you and your team to kill them. Now let's talk about an important ability, her W, which you won't be pressing it much because it's kind of like a press and forget about button, because you'll notice I'm fearless right now, and you'll see my sword is blue. Now I press W. Now it's pink. Now these do have differences. As you can see, it says fierce. It has to cool down a little bit. You see I'm losing HP. That's because I'm losing a percentage of my HP every second in trading for, I get extra movement speed and attack speed when I'm in pink sword mode. As you can see, I'm very fast. And I'll switch over to blue sword and you see I slow down. And blue sword also has its advantages. It gives me extra defenses and I heal a little bit per second. For the majority of the time, you should be in pink sword because it gives you a bunch of movement speed and attack speed, and that's pretty much how you'll be killing everyone, because as you see, I'm in blue sword. I am very slow, like extremely slow. So you pretty much will never be able to chase anyone, and you'll notice the attack speed difference. Let me just show you. I have 1280. Now let me use my pink sword. I have 1024. That's a huge attack speed increase. Like, look how fast I'm attacking at level 2. Alright, now let's talk about her ultimate, which is her E. So, whoop. I realized that there's actually a error in here. It's supposed to say for 5 seconds because it was nerfed. But for 5 seconds, she can't go below 1 HP, so she can't die for 5 seconds. Now, this doesn't stop you from getting hit by crowd control effects, so you still have to watch out for that, or you might just waste your whole ultimate. Now, let me give you an example of her ultimate. As you see, I'll go under tower. I'll get shot, and then I'll use my ultimate. You can see I got these effects around me, and I cannot die for 5 seconds. But you see it runs out, now I can die and I have 1 HP, so literally anything will kill me. As for combos, she doesn't really have any. I mean, this is pretty much all Fiona does. She's probably like the most simple and basic character in the game. You press E when your HP gets too low, or when you think you're gonna die. You Q to dash around. Yeah, no, that's it. She's super simple and easy to play. Okay, now we're on to Flame Princess, or FP as she is called, and we're going to go through her abilities and her combos, as well as any little things that can help you play her. Okay, let's talk about her passive. So, her passive, after she hits an enemy with the power, her basic attack sets them on fire, and it does damage over time. I think it's 3 seconds. Every second for 3 seconds, yeah. So, just a little damage over time, which I will show you here. I'll throw a Q, which you'll see I have these effects on me, so that's how you and the enemies can know that you have your passive. So now I'll click on him. You'll see now he's got this little burning effect, and you can see his health is going down for 3 seconds. Okay, moving on to her Q. So her Q throws a fireball, and after it hits its initial target, it will do a little blast past that, and it'll do extra damage to enemies caught in that blast. So I'll throw my Q at him so you can see. You see it does this little effect here. And enemies caught behind there will take extra damage, but he also took damage, and you can see it'll trigger my passive. Another thing about her Q is similar to with the other characters I discussed. Her Q resets her auto attack timer. So you'll see I'm attacking pretty slow. But if I click Q, then click again, I will throw 2 very quickly. As you can see right there. That was very fast, and that's how you reset your basic attack timer with her, which is your Q. Now let's talk about her W. Her W is her CC ability and her main way to keep assassins and bruisers off of her, which you can see this little circle. You designate a circle, you drop it on them, and it polymorphs them for 3 seconds. I can't exactly show you because it doesn't work on this bot here, but it'll turn them into little flambits, which they can't use any abilities, they get slowed, and they damage other enemies that are near them. Alright, now let's talk about her E, or her ultimate. It's a very powerful ability. So basically, I think it's for like 5 seconds. She goes all big and fiery, looks like a spaghetti monster. And she does damage in the little ring around her. And she can dash up to 3 times, so I'll show you. I'll pop my ult, you can see it hurts them, and then I can dash once, twice, 3 times, and then it ends. It'll also end after the 5 seconds, or whatever it is. Your ability will go on cooldown then. Now, it's not recommended to use all 3 dashes unless you just want to get out of there, or if you know you'll kill someone afterwards, because as you can see from that one ultimate, I did a lot of damage to him. Her ultimate can do a ton of damage, so I recommend only dashing twice at the most unless you want to just leave or chase someone and you think you can kill them. Let's talk about her little combos, I guess. So there's not really a combo per se, but basically what your engage will look like is you see an enemy, you drop the poly. If you hit them, I mean, sometimes you can tell just by how it looks if you'll hit them or not. You want to just use the poly and then use your E right away to dash in to burst him down and then dash out, as I'll show you here. As you can see, he's dead. I'm pretty safe away from all the other enemies that were there. And this will only increase the more damage you have. You'll be killing people much faster if they don't build against you. Alright, now I'm going to show you a little trick you can do with FP using this wave here if it doesn't kill me. So in order to proc your passive, you need to hit something with one of your abilities. Now, it's very hard to hit an enemy far away who's just running actively trying to dodge you with your Q. So what you can do is you can throw a basic attack, Q the wave or another enemy behind you that's right next to you, and you'll see I proc the burn on him. Alright, now let's talk about something else you can do with your Q, which it's not really a trick or anything, it's just kind of implied based on the ability. But let's say you're in a lane, there's another enemy champion there also in the lane, you're both just farming and poking each other. A lot of times they'll be hiding behind the minions because, you know, they'll block all sorts of abilities, but with FP it's a little bit different because let's say there's a champion there, you can angle yourself, Q the minion, and it'll do damage there, so they can't even hide behind their minions. And also, if you Q someone that gets hit behind it, you'll be doing 120% damage. Okay, now we're on to the little penguin Gunter. Now, he doesn't really have any combos or anything. In fact, he's pretty straightforward, but I'll go over what I can with him. So for his abilities, his passive is Shatter. And what that means is if you KO an enemy, including a champion, with a basic attack or your wing it, also known as your W, it'll trigger your Shatter passive. And what Shatter does is it does damage in an AoE around the target you kill. It'll make the noise and you'll see the bottles pop out of them. That's the Shatter passive triggering. Now let's talk about his Q. His Q is a dash. You just choose a spot and you dash. It also does damage to enemies. His W throws a bottle. That when it hits, it does damage. This also triggers his Shatter, like I mentioned before. Now his E, as you can see, it does this cone of continual damage in an area. So I'll show you. And before I do that, I'll let you know you can cancel it with your Q during the animation. You cannot move while you're doing this. And I'll demonstrate I will cancel it early with my Q so you can see. So I'll E, see it does damage to them, and then I will cancel it and dash away. Now, as for combos or anything, he doesn't really have them. As you can see, his kind of whole thing is just like his passive. But one thing I will say is you can, if you have the right opportunity, you can use a wave to your advantage. If you're going power damage Gunter, you can choose to fight enemies in a wave, and if you lead a champion to a wave of a large following of minions, you can trigger the Shatter passive on that champion to deal extra damage. Same with like camps. You can kind of If you time it right, you might be able to trigger a shatter passive on a camp that an enemy is taking to finish them off, or to hurt them enough so that you can dash in. So for his passive, whenever he basic attacks a enemy that is under the effect of a CC, which includes slowing, stunned, fear, charmed, etc., he will get an attack speed boost for a little while and a move speed boost. As you can see, I'll show you right here. See, my hands go purple and I attack really fast. This also resets his auto attack timer, so the same thing. This little number here, 1520, will go to 0 for a second to allow you to attack again immediately. Now let's talk about his Q. So his Q throws out a hand that when it hits an enemy, it pulls them towards you and slows them. You can do this 3 times, and if you land all 3 Qs on the same target, it'll deal bonus damage, as you'll see. I'll Q once, Q again, and Q the 3rd time. Now his W does a little circle around you, which follows you a little bit as you go around, which will fear enemies. So you can use it to get melees off of you. You can use it to kind of chain CC someone. I'll show you right here. So you do the little AoE and he gets feared and runs away and takes a small amount of damage over time. Now let's talk about his ult, the big suck. So basically he goes inside of his like demon form or whatever, and you get a large AoE of sucking, and then you can move around slowly while you're doing it, and it damages enemies inside. He also gets a boost to armor and power vamp during it, but it's not very noticeable. You can get CC'd out of this pretty easily, so you have to use it at the right times or else you'll just get knocked out of it and cancels. I'll show you it right here. You can see I'm sucking him and I'm moving around slightly. The only little trick I could say is if you keep queuing enemies, it'll cancel their basic attacks essentially. So if you time it right, you can make it so characters trying to basic attack you or someone else just can't do it because it'll keep canceling their basic attacks. Alright, so his passive gives him a little shield after he doesn't use abilities for a little while, which will basically slow down the attacker and he'll take slightly less damage from the attack. It's not really a noticeable passive, but sometimes you'll see an enemy slowed after they attack you, and it'll also lower their attack speed. Alright, now his Q, he shoots that little ball of ice, and if it hits an enemy, it'll root them and damage them for 1.75 seconds. As you can see, he got rooted, little ice effects on him, and he lost a little bit of HP. Now his W, you make a little AoE in an area, and it does damage continuously to any enemy in it, and you'll see here. Now his ult, he summons a giant AoE of ice that damages enemies on the inside, and it gives you a speed boost when you're inside, and I'll show you here. As you can see, I get plus 90% move speed, so I can go pretty fast, and it's hurting him. Now, as for combos, there aren't really any, but I guess the way to maximize your damage is to hit them with a Q first and then W so they can't move out of there, and you'll be able to get significantly more damage. You can also, if your teammates CC someone, you can, or crowd control them. So if they use their stuns or roots or whatever, you can chain CC them. So if, let's say he gets stunned, I can throw my thing to get a guaranteed root to extend the CC while dropping this on him. And I mean, it usually means certain death for anyone that it happens to. I guess as a little tip for Ice King, you should mostly be using your E defensively, because without your E, you're pretty easy prey for a lot of assassins in the game. So just use it defensively, or when you really need to on waves so they have to stop pushes and stuff. And I guess I'll show you the full combo here. So his passive makes it so after you basic attack an enemy, they get rooted for, I think it's like 0.75 seconds or a second, something like that. And it doesn't have a cooldown, but it's a cooldown per champion or target. So after you hit this, like I'll show you right here, he gets that purple effect. That means he's rooted. And now if I hit him again, see, it doesn't happen because I have to wait 6 seconds on that same target for it to proc again. And it also does a little bit of extra bonus damage. I think it's like 60% bonus AD. His Q roots him in place, and then he does a little animation and extends his arms, and if he touches something, I'll show you here, he stuns the target and pulls himself to you. As you can see, stunned, and I get pulled to him. Now his W turns into a ball and knocks enemies away from where he is. So if I were here, he'd go that way, that way, that way, that way, etc. So I'll show you here. Alright, now let's go over his ultimate. So he gets huge and he stomps around is what it says, basically. And this cleanses negative effects on you, like roots. Not all, because you can't use it while you're stunned, like no hard CCs. But if you're rooted or slowed or anything like that, using this will cleanse that and allow you to move again. And keep in mind, you only do damage when you move around. So don't just press it and then sit there and hope it does something. You have to actually move around, and I'll show you. So I press it, I get big, and you see nothing happens. But when I click around, I stomp and I damage enemies underneath me. Over his combos, so same thing with like Beimo, is you want to maximize the CC percentage. So I'll Q him, and right when his stun's about to run out, I'll root him. And then right when the root's about to run out, I will W him to get him moved around. And the very important thing about his W is know when to use it, because a lot of times you'll be knocking them away from your teammates. Like if they try to CC chain with you, you have to be mindful of that, or else you might be screwing over your team. And it's also important to know where you're going to hit them, because like for example, if they're sieging your tower, let's say this is my tower and they're a little bit closer, I could knock them into my tower range. I can root them, knock them in my tower range, stun them, etc., all that stuff. The tower will shoot them, and it'll be a pretty easy kill. So if Neptr puts down his W, his pie is landmine, you can grab onto that. You can also grab onto PB turrets, so that's a pretty big counter to Jake. But you can also grab onto actual turrets, as you can see. So enemies will probably try to hide behind turrets, so you have to be careful not to grab them, or else you might get yourself killed. Alright, so now we're moving on to Lemon, and I'll go over his abilities. So passive says whenever he gets hit by an ability, he gets a stack, up to 3 stacks. And these stacks will come later because they will increase your ultimate's potency, which I'll get to that. Now his Q does a cone, and it slows enemies and damage them a little bit in that area. So you'll see, I'll Q him. You'll get that slow effect, and you took a little bit of damage. Now his W, after a short delay, he drops a lemon from the sky, and you'll see there's 2 rings. The middle ring does extra effects, and the outer ring does less effects. So if you hit them in the outer ring, it blinds them. If you hit them in the center ring, it blinds them and silences them. Hitting them in the center, as you can see there, they're silenced and they're blind. Now, there isn't really much else to say, except if you're fighting Lemon, please do not use your abilities on him unless you absolutely have to, because the more abilities you use on him, the more you're screwing over your team, because you might just drop one ability like an Ice King W or something and think nothing of it, but he can purposely stand in that W, get all of his stacks, and then million years dungeon your team and just kill them and you lose. So for his main ability, which you'll see a lot, is his passive, which summons a skeleton named Scully whenever you use an ability. I'll show it here. I will use my W, and you'll see, now I have this little skeleton falling. Now he will attack things that you attack. So I will attack this Finbot, and you can see he's going to town on him. Anytime Scully defeats an enemy, I don't know if I'll be able to see because he's a Finbot, but every time Scully gets the final hit on an enemy, whether it be a jungle camp, minion, or a champion, Lich permanently gets more power damage. Let's talk about his Q. So Lich naturally is the slowest character in the game, but his Q gives him a speed boost and leaves behind a trail of death, which will damage and slow enemies that touch it. And this also has the same effect as his passive, where if he finishes off an enemy with this ability, he gets more power damage permanently. See, it summons Scully because it's an ability, and you'll see I leave this trail behind that is damaging and slowing him and giving me a speed boost. Now for his W shoots out a projectile that's decently slow, and if it collides with an enemy, it'll charm the enemy, force them to walk towards you, because that's what charming does. So I'll demonstrate it here. See? Oh no, you can actually charm a bot. So yeah, see, you force them to walk towards me, and when they're charmed, they can't do anything else. So it's usually certain death if you get charmed a lot of times. So his ultimate, I designate somewhere, and it'll create a circle, or his well of death, or whatever, well of power. And then it'll continuously damage enemies in that circle, and then Lich can press it again to teleport. So I will show you. I create the well. It'll kill him, and I can also press it again to teleport to the well. You can only teleport once to the well, though, so use it sparingly. It has a very high cooldown. Let's show kind of his only real combo, which will be his E. You will E in, you will teleport to E, then you will charm an enemy into your E so that they're stuck there, and then you will also Q for even more damage. And Scully will also teleport with you. Now for, I guess, a tip with Lich is don't just throw out random charms. Like, let's say we're both posturing at a spot, like we were ready to fight. Don't just like randomly throw a charm out, because obviously I hit him because he wasn't moving, but you'll pretty much, you should never, I guess I should say, you should never hit a charm from that range unless the enemy's intentionally trying to get hit by the charm. Because as soon as you lose your charm, instantly become a target for every assassin on the enemy team to just kill you. So save your charms for when you get a pretty easy charm, or a lot of times just holding the charm is enough to deter enemies from wanting to jump on you, because everyone on the team's thinking, I don't want to be the first one to get charmed, you know, like let it be someone else. So for her passive, lumps or bumps or something, I don't know what it's called. Every time you basic attack someone, so you left click on them like that, you'll see I'll get 1 stack. You can get up to 10 stacks. I will explain them in the next ability. For Q, you designate a thin rectangle to shoot out purple goo that will damage and fear enemies, and feared enemies will run away from you. This also heals LSP based on the number of lump stacks she has. So if you get 10 lump stacks, you will heal quite a bit, and that's one of LSP's main way of staying alive when taking jungle camps and stuff, is you just kind of heal yourself back up to full without having to worry about losing a lot of health. I'll show you the fear. W, when you press W, there's no like designation. You will see a circle appear around you, and then it'll start damaging enemies around her for a few seconds, as you'll see. Alright, now let's talk about her ultimate, or her E. You channel for a second or two, and then you throw your phone, which a giant phone will be bouncing around, and it goes for the entire map. So you'll see I will throw the phone at him. You'll see it bounces, and it'll continue to bounce in that same direction all the way until it gets off the map. Damages enemies and heals allies. Now we're on the Magic Man, and we'll go over his ability. So his passive, when he hits a champion, he gets increased movement speed for a little while with his basic attack, so I'll hit him. Again, the bot doesn't actually count as a champion, but I'll go up to usually around like 3.2 speed. That's pretty much it to his passive. There's no strings attached. That's literally all it does. Now let's talk about his Q. His Q throws 3 snakes, 3 energy snakes or magic snakes or something. And if it hits an enemy, it'll silence them, as you can see, which means they can't cast abilities. And that's mostly it to his ability. His Q does give him an auto reset, but it's bugged right now. So normally, as I explained in the video, an auto reset is you basic attack, use the ability, then basic attack again instantly. But with him, it's slightly bugged. It will be fixed in the future, but as it stands for now, you have to double attack after queuing. So I'll show you. I'll queue, then click twice, and he will do a double attack. As you can see, through 2 attacks, it's not at all how a reset's supposed to work, but for the time being, that's how it works, so that's how you're supposed to use your reset. Alright, now let's talk about his W. His W has a long cooldown, but that's because it's very strong. He will teleport a short distance based on his cursor, so if I'm walking here, I can teleport behind me. It just depends on where you're moving your cursor. And he will create a clone that'll walk in the same direction that you were walking when you press the button. He will also enter stealth for a little bit. There's a lot of stuff on top of this ability, but as you can see, that's why it has a long cooldown. I will show you. So I will click, and then I will teleport. I'll become visible, and you see my clones walking. And then the clone will expire, dealing damage around it, and my stealth will also expire once the clone expires. You can end this effect early by pressing the button before the clone destroys itself. If you're going power damage, you can kind of line up your clone and detonate it when you're on top of enemies. Alright, now let's talk about his E. It's a very powerful ability. As you can see, you designate this very, very large circle, and Magic Man will roll over there, and then once he reaches his destination, he'll do an explosion, which will slow enemies and reduce their armor for a couple of seconds. Now, the damage of this is based on current health. So if you see a 1 HP enemy, which I'll get this guy down to 1 HP and show you, and I'll show you when they're at full HP so you can see the huge difference. As you can see, he's low HP, and it did practically nothing. So it's not used to finish enemies off. It's used to start fights. His only real combo, which is E, Q, auto, auto. I'll show you here. I will E, Q, then auto, auto. Marceline's abilities. So her passive, she has 2 different passives. When she's in vampire form, every 3 basic attacks, as you'll see, there'll be a little effect. Will be vamping for a little bit of the damage the 3rd auto did. Her vampire form, Q, throws out a projectile that when it hits enemies, it slows them and damages them every second for a couple of seconds, as you'll see. Now her W gives her a speed boost and does damage to enemies around her. That's pretty much it, as you can see. Alright, now her E, she transforms into her other form, so the opposite form that she's in right now, would be fearing them. If she goes from vampire to beast, she would fear them. If she goes from beast to vampire, she would charm them and get attack speed, and I'll show you here. You see I channel, I fear them, and I get CC immunity for a couple of seconds afterwards. Alright, now that I'm in beast form, I can tell you about her other abilities. Her HP regens faster in beast form. Now her Q in beast form is similar to her Q in vampire form, except it roots them and only does damage one time. But it's a 2-second root. Now her W in beast form is an empowered basic attack, and it does extra damage and heals her for quite a bit. And it's an auto reset as well. So I can auto, W, auto, and I'll show you here. It also increases her move speed. See? Yep, she gets quite a big speed boost from it. And it does decay over time, so it's not forever. Alright, now I'll show you her beast form E, which transforms back into vampire form and charms nearby enemies and gives her an attack speed boost. Let's talk about kind of the only combo you can do with her, which is in beast form. So you start in beast form, you Q them, and then you E them when they're rooted. And I'll show you here. So you Q, then you E, and then you W, and then you just basic attack them like that. That's pretty much Marceline's only actual combo that she has. Alright, now we're on to Neptr. His passive gives you increased movement speed and attack speed while you're in a bush. So as you can see here, I'm 2.85 and 1460. I'll go in the bush. I'm 3.8 and 1095. And you can see I am significantly faster. And I can just go from bush to bush, get increased move speed. It's a pretty useful ability considering most of the main map is made up of bushes. Now his Q throws out a pie, boomerang as it's called. Throws out a slow moving pie that'll go out, and once it reaches the end, it'll come back. So I'll show you. Goes out and then comes back. Now it does do reduced damage per target it hits, but the damage reduction resets on its way back. His W places down a pie mine, and then if something walks in that pie, after a brief delay, it will explode and damage and slow enemies inside of it, as you'll see here. But his ultimate, you see the circle. It will drop a big pie down, it'll knock them back, it will silence them, and it will deal damage over time, as I will show you here. But that's pretty much it with Neptr. Clear wave, clear jungle, and you'll be good. Alright, let's go over Peppermint Butler's ability, or Pep Butt. So his passive says when he stands still, he'll enter stealth, and he'll start regenerating HP very quickly. And he also gets CC immunity when he leaves. As you'll see, the CC immunity thing will pop up when I leave. There we go. That means I can't be crowd controlled. His Q makes a minty aura here around you, and it moves with you. I think it's like 5 seconds, something like that, and it blinds any enemies inside of the show you here. It also damages them a little bit. You can see he's blinded, it moves with me, did a little bit of damage. Now his W, you'll see a little indicator, is his dash essentially. It's a little bit slow, but the benefit of that is, see this big circle? If you hit an enemy, it will stun them, as you'll see here. See, he got stunned. His ultimate gives him extra attack speed, AD, move speed, and a little bit of extra attack range for a little while, and he'll get a little bit bigger, as you'll see here. You see I'm bigger, but the problem is it silences you, so I'm mashing my buttons and it doesn't do anything. Now let's talk about the things that you can kind of do with him. He doesn't really have any combos, but same thing as before. With other characters I mentioned about maximizing CC potential. The main thing you'll be doing is doubling on top of people, and then you'll be queuing them so that they can't really fight back if they're a basic attack. But the important thing is you want to queue only after their stun runs out. So I'll show you here. See, stunned, it runs out, so I queue to maximize the amount of time that the character that I just used these on cannot do anything. That's pretty much it for Pep Butt. Yeah, he doesn't really do much. Alright, now we're on to Princess Bubblegum, or PB, and her abilities. So her passive, as you can see, I have these 3 here. When I hit enemies with my basic attack, so when I left click them, they will attack slower. But if I attack them 3 times with it, they will also get slowed, as you will see. I can't show you his attack speed going down, but it does. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Now I won't show him getting slowed because, again, this guy doesn't actually count as like anything, but you'll lose these charges. Alright, now let's talk about her Q. So our Q, have a circle here, you throw it. When you throw it, it leaves behind a pink puddle, which will damage and slow enemies and speed up PB. So I'll go like this, I'll throw it, and then I'll walk through it, and you can see I get a speed boost, and it damages him and slows. They'll lower their attack speed, and if you hit them with 3 of them, it'll also slow them. Our W deploys a turret in the radius. As you can see, turret will shoot enemies that are inside the range, prioritizing champions. As you can see, it's going crazy. And the HP will get higher the higher level PB is. PB's E, or her ultimate, is bomb that you put down wherever your cursor is. It has a range, obviously, but I can't see it because it's not one of those types of abilities. And then it'll blow up after a while, or you can detonate it early. You'll pretty much always be detonated early, because if you don't, that gives so much time for the enemies to leave. But I will show it to you here. So I put the bomb down, I can press it again, and it knocks them away as well. Let's talk about her only real combo, which is her E, or her ultimate. And it does extra damage to slowed enemies. So naturally, you put 2 and 2 together. Her Q slows. Q. E. Explode it. It does extra damage. Okay, now it's time for the final character on this guide, which is Rattle Balls. We'll go through his abilities. So whenever he uses the power, his next 2 basic attacks will heal him for a little bit. That's pretty much it. So his Q is a little more complicated. At its core, it's 2 dashes. So you see, I can dash twice by pressing it twice. But the other element of his Q is that you can use it to counter stance against enemies. So if an enemy tries to attack you, as you see, I'll go into counter stance. You'll see if I only use 1 dash, I go into this little stance mode. And then if an enemy basic attacks me, I will counter them and damage them with a crit and my full AD back at them. Now, this can be canceled. Like if I use 1 dash and sit like this, to try to counter stance someone, they can hit me with an ability. If you take any ability damage while you're doing that, it gets canceled. And remember, you have to only use this one in order to counter stance. If you dash again, the second dash won't be a counter stance, just the first one. And you can counter stance towers. You can counter stance towers when they shoot you. So a lot of it's about timing. You do that when you're about to get hit by a basic attack. And obviously it'll give you your path. So his W does a little AoE around him and then sucks people into you, as you'll see. Like that. It's just used to combo with your team and stuff like that to pull them back into other abilities. His ultimate locks him out of doing anything basically except for moving, and he spins around and gets a 14% speed boost and damages enemies, as I will show you. And you can cancel it early by pressing the button again. So I'll show you. You can see it's I can press it again to cancel it early, but I won't. And then you see I got a little speed boost. I couldn't use any of my other things. As for combos, there's not really an actual combo, but a basic engage will usually look like this. That's pretty much what an average engage with Rattle Balls will look like. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the guide. Talk about something I kind of forgot on the basic gameplay guide, which are important tools that you can use to just learn more about the game. So the first resource I recommend is in the Discord. There is a guide that I made under the Battle Masters tab, as you can see here. Backpack build guide. This will have builds for every character in the game. So if you're new and you're not sure what to do, you can come here and learn about every single build that you need. And also, if you haven't seen already, I have a gameplay guide you can watch. It's also in here. And also, if you really need help, feel free to come in general and at me or community managers. They'll probably be able to help. And another resource, the official OpenATBT wiki. This is what I use to get pretty much everything I do and know about the game, like in terms of stats and numbers. You just click on wiki top left and you choose what you're looking for. So let's say I want to know more about champions. Well, I can click on this and say I want to play Gunter. Let me see what's special about Gunter. Oh, he's got a passive 1% crit chance. He gets 0 armor. Let me see the statistics per level. Let's see here. Yeah, he gets 0 armor per level. That's interesting. That's other characters don't do that. Something important to learn. You can see his scalings on all of his abilities here. 100% of his power damage, 60 base damage plus 70% of his power damage. You can basically learn anything you need to know about the game besides actual experience from playing the game on this wiki. So check it out. I will link these things in the description. Definitely use that.